Hi, this is Mrs. Girot, and I was telling you that I was going to help you out with that review of digital arts. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop in here. There is a test, a Unit 2 test that I want you to do. Today is Friday, and so I'm basically just going to kind of go through all of this and just read it to you and make sure that you're prepared. Okay, so you're going to review the elements of art, review some of the tools that we used in Digital Arts 1. We did that in class. Preview the principles of design you'll learn about in this course and learn about some Inkscape tools that you can use. We pretty much did all the tool stuff in class. In this lesson, you'll review lines, shapes, and forms, the pencil, Bezier, and calligraphy tools, and how to use them. All right, so we already did that. I'm just going to kind of go through this really quick. A line is a path traced by a moving point. Let us review different types and qualities of lines and how lines are used in art. Types and qualities of lines. In artwork, lines are used in many different ways. The way that a line is used determines what type of line it is. Artists use lines to draw the outlines of shapes as well as for drawing the detailed lines inside a shape that suggest form or contours. Lines can be used to show an object or person's movement, direction, or speed. Sketched lines are a quick way to get an idea down, while calligraphic lines are used with great care and forethought. Sometimes the lines aren't actually there but are implied by other things that are. An implied line could be the edge where two colors meet, or the line formed by a row of people waiting. Qualities of lines are what lines look like. Lines can be long or short and thin or thick. They can be horizontal, vertical, and anywhere in between. Lines can be straight, curved, jagged, or any combination of these. The edges of lines can be sharp or fuzzy. The types of lines being used will often suggest the qualities of lines that should be used. For example, if you want your drawing to have both outlines and contour lines, you may want the outlines to be thicker and more solid than the contour lines. Uses in art. Lines in art have different qualities based on the tools used to create them. A line created with blue acrylic paint will look very different from a line drawn with a No. 2 graphite pencil or a line drawn with black ballpoint pen. Lines can also be created using computers and drawing software tools, or even by the lines made from the edges sculpted out of various materials. The way an artist uses their tools determines the types of lines they'll create. Drawing a straight line with a pencil and a ruler would make a different type of straight line than one drawn freehand. In the same way, double-clicking or double-selecting with Inkscape's pencil tool makes a perfectly straight line, while the straight line drawn by selecting and dragging is usually not perfect. In this digital arts course, you'll use several different tools to create a variety of lines. You'll practice using these tools soon. Let us review the tools you used. The pencil tool can be used to draw straight lines and freehand lines. The pencil tool controls let you change the smoothness and shape of the lines. The Bezier tool can be used to draw a series of connected straight and curved lines. The Bezier controls let you change drawing modes as well as the shapes of the lines. The calligraphy tool can be used to draw freehand lines of different styles. The calligraphy tool controls let you modify the look of a preset or create your own. Fill and stroke panel can be used to change the style of a pencil tool or Bezier tool line or stroke after it's been drawn. In the fill and stroke panel, the stroke style tab can be used to change a line's width, whether the ends of the line are flat or rounded or whether the line is solid or dashed. The Stroke Style tab can also be used to add markers to the beginning, middle, and ends of lines, as well as to change the blurriness and opacity of lines. A shape is a two-dimensional object with height and width. A form is a three-dimensional object with height, width, and depth. Let us review different shape and form types and how they are used in art. Types. Shapes come in many different types. Three common types of shapes are geometric, organic, and abstract. A single shape can also be a combination of different types of shapes. Forms also come in many different types, such as geometric and organic. Use in art. Shapes can be used in an artwork to create objects in the foreground and in the background to create static and dynamic shapes to express calm or excitement, and to create patterns by repeating shapes. In 2D artwork, forms can be used in all of the ways that shapes can, but attempting to make a third dimension adds complexity to the process of making an artwork. In order to make a 2D artwork look realistic, it needs to suggest 3D space in some way. In the Digital Arts 1 course, you use several different tools to create a variety of shapes and forms. You'll practice using these tools soon. Let us review the tools you used. The Rectangle tool draws squares and rectangles with sharp or curved corners. The square handles resize the height and width of the square or rectangle, and the circle handle gives the square or rectangle rounded corners. The Ellipse tool draws circles and ovals. The square handles resize the height and width of the ellipse, and the circle handle makes the ellipse an arc or segment. The Star tool draws stars and other polygons. The Star tool controls can be used to change the shape of the star or polygon, as well as to change the number of corners the star or polygon has. Okay, so that concluded the Elements of Art Review Part 1, and now let's start the Elements of Art Review Part 2. In this lesson, you'll review color, value, space, and texture. Color is an effect created by how the human brain through the eyes interprets light reflecting off of things. Color is based on the visible light that human beings can see. The color spectrum ranges through red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. The color of an object, as well as the amount and color of light reflecting off it, determines what color something looks like. Let us review color and its properties. Models and properties. Color models are different ways of organizing color. One color model uses a color wheel to break colors out into primary, secondary, tertiary, complementary, and analogous colors. Red, green, and blue are considered primary for additive colors. Using colored light, all the other colors can be made from combinations of these three primary colors. Many computer drawing software programs use combinations of red, green, and blue with the acronym RGB to make other colors because that's what computer screens use. More complicated color modes also include other properties of colors, such as hue, value, and intensity. By giving specific number values to colors and their properties, computers can use those numbers to recreate a specific color exactly every time. Use in art. Artists combine colors in different ways. Painters mix colors of paint together to make different colors of paint. Theater and movie lighting designers mix different colors of light to change the mood and setting of a scene. Additive color mixing combines different colors of light by adding them together. A mixture of all the colors of light would make a pure white light. So this is demonstrating the additive here in the picture, and you notice when you have all of the colors combined, it creates white. The colors on your computer screen are an example of additive color mixing because computer screens use combinations of red, green, and blue light to make colors. Subtractive color mixing combines different colors of material together. A subtractive mixture of all the colors would make a blackish color. The colors on a painting are an example of subtractive color mixing because the colors are made of paint, which absorb light. The more colors are combined into a subtractive mix, the more colors will be absorbed or subtracted from the light reflecting off the mix. Artists use the colors they choose to emphasize different parts of an artwork through contrasting colors, as well as to create optical and emotional effects. Inkscape Tools. In Inkscape, there are 3 main tools used to change the color of a line, shape, or other object. You'll practice using these tools, and that's what we did today in class. There is the Fill and Stroke panel. It has a few different ways to choose the color of an object's fill and stroke. It can also be used to change an object's color properties such as saturation or lightness. There's the color palette, what runs along the bottom of the Inkscape canvas. It is made up of sets of different colors. In this course, the color palette will be referred to as the palette. Different preset color palettes can be selected and used to add color to objects on the canvas. And then there's the swatches panel that can be used to show different color palettes, as well as to show specific color names. All of the color palettes, preset palettes, can be selected through the swatches channel. So there's the fill and stroke, this is the swatches, and there's the palette. Add colors. Value is the lightness or darkness of a color. Let us review value. Lightness and darkness. Differences in a color's value are caused by different amounts of light and shadow falling onto a single color. Gradation is the range of all the colors created by different amounts of light on a single color. Contrast is how different 2 colors are. Colors with darker values have lower contrast because as light fades, colors become less distinct. As light increases, the contrast between 2 colors increases until the colors become more white than colorful, at which point the contrast will decrease again. Use in art. Artists have different techniques for changing color values depending on what artistic medium they're working in. Painters can mix white and black paint with other colors of paint to make lighter and darker color values. Photographers consider value in terms of the quality of light available when they plan what they're going to take a picture of. In a photography studio, photographs or photographers use lighting and other photography tools to set the values of colors. Photographers also use darkrooms and image editing software to change color values after a photo is taken. Digital artists can change color values at any stage in their artistic process. Inkscape Tools. In Inkscape, color values can be changed for an entire object, or variations of value can be added to an object. You'll practice changing color values soon. HSL. In the Fill and Stroke panel, the HSL tab lets you change the hue, saturation, and lightness of a selected object. Hue is color. Saturation is how much gray a hue has. Lightness is how dark or light the color is with a range from black to white. And the Gradient tool. The Gradient tool lets you draw and edit gradients. Stops are square handles on the gradient line that can be selected and dragged to change the gradient. Specific colors are chosen for the beginning, middle, and ending stops, while Inkscape calculates the gradients in between. And if you missed that by coming to class on Thursday, if you watched the video tutorial that I emailed you, I actually teach you how to use the gradient tool in that tutorial. It'd be worth your time to check it out. Also, if you're in here on the 2.02 Elements of Art Preview Review Part 2 and you go to Learn, Add Values and Gradients, you can do this little exercise right here where it teaches you how to select an object, open the Fill and Stroke box, and then to select that gradient tool right here, and you draw a gradient line, and then you can click on those stops and use that HSL tab right there in your fill in stroke box to click on the colors that you want. You can adjust the saturation and lightness. Okay, so that is there at your disposal as well. Space is a three-dimensional area made up of height, width, and depth. Space can be a limited area or all of three-dimensional space. In 2D art like painting or drawing, space can be the flat surface of the canvas, paper, or computer screen, as well as the illusion of space that the artist creates in their work. Let us review 2D space techniques. Visual cues are one way of suggesting 3D space on a 2D picture plane. Larger objects tend to look closer than smaller objects. An object which overlaps another object will look closer than the overlapped object. Objects toward the bottom of a picture plane will look closer than objects toward the top. Lighter colored objects look closer than darker objects. Objects without atmospheric effects look closer than objects that look hazy and indistinct. Perspective is another way of suggesting 3D space on a 2D picture plane. Fractional perspective uses a combination of overlapping and location to create the illusion of depth. Isometric perspective is a mathematical, though non-realistic, technique for creating the illusion of space. In isometric perspective, objects are drawn to reflect their actual sizes, regardless of how far away they are. On paper, the close side of a building would measure the same length as the farthest side of the building. Because of this, it is used to create accurate architectural and mechanical plans. Linear perspective is the most accurate technique for drawing things the way they would look in real life. It uses parallel lines, converging lines, and vanishing points to create the illusion of 3D space. Linear perspective can be in 1 point, 2 point, or 3 point based on how many vanishing points there are. Inkscape tools. In Inkscape, only the box tool creates a mathematically precise linear perspective automatically. Other tools can be used manually to create different types of visual cues and perspective. You'll practice creating linear perspective with the box tool. The box tool draws cubes using 1 point, 2 point, or 3 point perspective. The 3D box object can be resized or moved, and its shape and perspective can be changed. Boxes can also be converted into paths to be edited with the node tool. Other tools. Though they aren't used for it specifically, other Inkscape tools can be used to create the illusion of space. The Select tool can be used to resize and move objects. The Fill and Stroke panel can give objects lighter or darker colors. Lighter colored objects look closer than darker colored objects. The Line tools can be used to draw perspective lines. Texture is how something feels when it's touched, or how something looks like it will feel. Different textures. Artists working in physical media like stone, wood, or even paint create physical textures through their work. In addition to the physical textures of their media, painters and other visual artists create images that appear to have textures through their visual feel. Visual feel is what something looks like it would feel like. Digital artists work entirely in visual feel because digital art doesn't have a physical texture. Use in art. Texture is used to add realism and variety to an artwork. If all the objects in an illustration had the same visual feel, it would look less realistic. With Inkscape, a vector graphics software program, it's not easy to draw the kind of detail that would make gritty, fuzzy, knit, or other realistic textures. Filters are effects that can give an Inkscape object a visual texture. In addition to making an object look rough or shiny, filters can be used to give objects glows, shadows, and outlines. You'll practice using filters, and we actually did that in class or in that video if you watched that. Okay, so that wrapped up the 2.02 review part 2, and now let's go to Principles of Design Preview. In this lesson, Principles of Design Preview, you'll preview the principles of design you'll learn about in this course. You'll also learn about Inkscape tools that you may not have used yet, but that might be useful in future artistic creations. Principles of design are ideas that make it easier to think about, talk about, and plan artistic creations. For example, if you don't know what color was, or didn't know, it would be hard to discuss a painting's use of color. In the same way, a principle of design provides a key to looking at and understanding art more deeply. Let us learn about the principles of design. Repetition, pattern. Repetition is the use of repeated elements such as line, shape, and color. A pattern is the use of repetition to create a specific effect. Contrast is the amount of difference between two colors. White and black have the highest amount of contrast. Contrast can also mean differences between other art elements such as thin and thick, smooth and rough, or square and circular. Variety is the combination of different elements and different types of elements. Rhythm and movement is how fast or slow a piece of music is. In visual art, rhythm is the use of repeated art elements to encourage a specific visual movement. Movement is a way to encourage people's eyes to travel from one part of an artwork to another. Movement is also used in visual artwork to suggest action, such as a crashing wave or a leaping frog. Balance is the way elements are arranged in an artwork. An artwork can be balanced or off-balanced. An example of a balanced artwork would be one that was mostly symmetrical, while an off-balanced artwork would be asymmetrical. Emphasis and dominance. Emphasis is a collection of techniques for drawing attention to certain parts of an artwork. A part of an artwork has dominance when it has more emphasis than other parts of an artwork. Proportion is how large something is compared to something else. Harmony or unity. Harmony is when two or more elements of an artwork feel like they fit together. An artwork has unity when it has harmony between all of its elements. And let's go ahead and take a look at this checkpoint. It's a little matching quiz. Drawing attention to certain parts of an artwork. I think that's emphasis. The amount of difference between elements. Contrast. How large something is compared to something else. Proportion. Has harmony between all its elements. Unity. Encouraging the eye to travel across an artwork in a specific direction. Movement. The way elements are arranged in an artwork. I'm going to go back to that one. The combination of different elements. Variety. The use of repetition to create a specific effect. I'm going with pattern. which means that the way elements are arranged in artwork would be balance? Let's find out. Well, I guess it's not going to tell me if I got it right. Those were my guesses. When you submit it, I guess you'll find out. Okay, so there are some more Inkscape tools that might be useful to you. And let's just take a quick look at what those are. The spiral tool. We did not do that in class. The spiral tool can be used to draw a specific type of spiral called an Archimedean spiral. Archimedean spirals have a constant distance between each turn of the spiral. They are named after Archimedes, the 3rd century BCE Greek mathematician. A spiral has 2 handles, one at each end of the spiral. And if you'd like to go ahead and practice using the spiral tool, this is in 2.03, but basically you're just going to open up your Inkscape and it's going to take forever. Click the spiral tool and click and drag to draw the spiral, and then on the spiral click and drag the center handle outward along the path of the spiral to move the center point, and then you can also click and drag the outer handle to make the spiral larger or smaller. And you can just draw some more spirals. You can use the selection tool and then click and drag and resize it. Click and drag the spiral tool and then click the spiral tool controls. Click the divergence arrows, change the distance between the churns, so you can change those settings that are at the top of the page, and then click the arrows to change the number, and that'll have an interesting effect. So notice the difference in the divergence. Keep drawing and editing spirals until you're comfortable. Let's see what else. Next we have the paint bucket tool. This fills an area with color. It does this by creating a new object in the shape of the fill area on top of the original shape. So complete these steps to fill a shape. Click the rectangle tool. On the left end of the palette, click the box with the X, and that's going to take away the fill, right? On the palette, press and hold the Shift key while clicking the black or dark color swatch to the right of the X. Holding the Shift key while clicking the palette sets the stroke color to black or the dark color that you chose. And then draw a rectangle overlapping one of the spirals. Tip: if your rectangle has a fill color, repeat step 2, get rid of the fill. Then click the Ellipse tool and draw an ellipse to overlap the spiral and the rectangle. This is getting crazy. In order for the next steps to work, the ellipse and the rectangle lines need to be solid. If they aren't, use the stroke style dashes drop down list to make the lines solid. Now click the edit menu and then click deselect to unselect the ellipse, or you could have just clicked off of it. Tip: this way, when you change the fill color for the paint bucket tool, it won't change the fill color of the ellipse. Good, so make sure your ellipse is not selected. Now click the paint bucket tool, and on the palette, click the color you want to use as your fill color, and then click an area inside the rectangle. Look what happens! It's filled with color. Click the edit menu and then click deselect. So remember, every time you go to fill a different area, you have to go edit, deselect. Then choose a new color and click in a different area. And so edit, deselect, choose a new color, click in a different area. So the fill bucket is really, the paint bucket's pretty cute, fun way. Moved fill shapes. Complete these steps to make a shape created with the paint bucket tool. So let's check this out. Now using the select tool, you can click and drag the filled shapes and move them. So go ahead and move all of those around. Fun. The erase tool, this is one of my favorites, erases entire objects or parts of objects depending on which mode it's in. The touch mode removes any objects it touches. The cutout mode removes the parts of any object it touches. In cutout mode, the erase tool only erases selected objects. So let's check these out. This will be fun. So make sure the filled shapes aren't touching the spiral, rectangle, and ellipse. If they are, use the select tool to click and drag them out of the way. All right. Then click the Erase tool, and then up at the top of the page you have controls up here. Click and drag the width slider, it says to 15, and then this changes the size of the eraser or the width of the eraser, and then click the touch mode. So there's two different modes. So this is touch. It's the first button to the right of the width slider. And now on the ellipse, click and drag to delete it. So you would just click and drag over the ellipse and it would be gone. Make sure you don't delete the spiral. If you do, press Ctrl-Z to undo the deletion and then try this step again. On the rectangle, click and drag to delete it. Now let's change that mode to the cutout button. So click on the cutout button at the top, and then on the spiral, click and drag to erase part of it. Cool. And this is cool if you have like a solid rectangle and you want to like create the illusion of like holes that ants have made in it. You just take the eraser tool and drag through it and it'll erase. It's really fun. Tunnels. Create tunnels in your shapes. The tweak tool. All right, the tweak tool makes small changes to selected objects, paths, and colors. The tweak tool won't make changes to unselected objects. The type of change being used is set through the tweak tool controls. You'll learn about some of the different controls as you use the next tool. So let's check out the tweak shapes. So press the Ctrl+A keys to select all of the objects. Tip, you can also do this by clicking the Edit menu and then clicking Select All. Click the Tweak tool. On the Tweak tool controls, click and drag the width slider to about 15. Click and drag the force slider to about 40. And then to the right of mode, click the Move Objects in Any Direction button. On the canvas, click and drag the objects to move them in the direction of the mouse pointer's movement. On the Tweak tool controls, click the Move Objects Toward Cursor button. Click and drag the objects to move them toward the center of the cursor. On the Tweak tool controls, click the Move Objects in Random Directions button. Click and drag the objects to move them in random direction. Click the other mode buttons and then click and drag to try them out. Tip, you can get an idea of what each button does by pointing the mouse pointer to each button. When you're done using the Tweak tool, save your project. Well, you didn't really have to. So anyway, those were just some other tools. And that takes care of the principles of design review. And you can read through that artist profile if you decide that you want to go through that. And now we just have this unit review. Congratulations, you reviewed the elements of art and some Inkscape tools used in the Digital Arts 1 course. You also previewed the principles of design and learned about some Inkscape tools that might be useful. In this section, you reviewed the elements of art, reviewed some of the tools used in Digital Arts 1, reviewed the principles of design you'll learn about in this course, and learned about some Inkscape tools that you can use in this course. And here's the test. Which type of color mixing is used by computer screens? If you're not sure whether it's additive, subtractive, absorbent, or filter color mixing, rewind the video. Which type of perspective is used to create architectural and mechanical plans? 2-point, linear, isometric, or fractional? What is the word for a two-dimensional object with height and width? Is it form, shape, stroke, or filter? Which type of perspective is the most accurate technique for drawing things the way they would look in real life? Fractional, isometric, architectural, or linear? In additive color mixing, what are 3 primary colors? Red, yellow, and blue, orange, magenta, blue, magenta, yellow, and cyan, or red, green, and blue? Blank is what something looks like it would feel like. Blank is what something looks like it would feel like. Texture cues, value cues, spatial feel, visual feel. What is the word for a three-dimensional object with height, width, and depth? Perspective, value, form, or shape. The edge where two colors meet or the line formed by a row of people waiting are examples of which type of line? Implied, sketched, vertical, or contour. What is a gradation? The visual feel of an object, how different two colors are, a perspective technique that uses overlapping and location to create the illusion of depth, or the range of all the colors created by different amounts of light on a single color. And lastly, in Inkscape, the three main tools for changing colors are the fill and stroke panel, the color palette, and the swatches panel, toolbox, Bezier tool, or canvas panel. If you're not sure about the answers to any of these questions, you can either rewind the video or you can return to the content and all of the answers are in the content. So you can kind of scroll down and go, oh, you know, I just wasn't sure about that one about contour lines, or I wasn't sure which kind of lines. So maybe it's over here in the lines. And I can go in there and I can skim. Oh, here it is right here. Sometimes the lines aren't actually there but are implied by other things that are. An implied line could be the edge where two colors meet or the line formed by a row of people waiting. So it's too bad they didn't have that bolded. That would have been really helpful to find it. But anyway, I was just trying to illustrate to you that if there was a question on the quiz and you weren't sure what the answer was, you can go back and you can use the clues in these headings to figure out where to find the answer. So good luck on that test. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.